Hey guys, welcome back to another video, and today is market update time since it is Thursday. I don't know what it is, what's happening today in particular, but everything is so difficult today. Anyway, as always, we are going to talk about what's going on in the industry, what's happening with those spot rates. We're going to look at the rate per mile maps for dry vans, reefers, and flatbeds. Of course, we're going to look at authorities as well, ELP violations, and diesel prices. Ready? Let's go. So as usual, all the charts are going to be attached right here, and they're also going to be available on my website. So let's go through the general overview first. Load postings week over week have gone down by about 4.4%. It's not a surprise. Volumes are definitely suffering right now. However, month over month, which is interesting, they're up 18.8%, and year over year, 45% higher. Now, this is for all equipment types. Capacity postings decreased week over week by 1.4%. They're up 3.6% month over month and down 26.1% year over year. Diesel prices, week over week, down 3.4 cents per gallon, month over month, down 8.1 cents per gallon, and year over year, up 2 cents per gallon. Now, let's take a look at what's happening with those authorities. And what we're going to see is that as of last week, we lost a net of 402 carriers. How did this happen? Let's take a look. As you can see right here, the total gained has been going down. So less people are coming into the industry, and the total lost, people who are getting their authority voluntarily or involuntarily revoked, is also increasing. All right, let's take a look at what is happening with those ELPs. So October is up to October 20th. There's a little bit of a delay with data. I know it's October 23rd today, but as you can see, yeah, they're obviously lower still than September, August, or July, both the ELP violations in blue and the out of service orders in pink. But we're going to see what happens over the next 11 days to figure out where October stands. Now, if we take a look at the correlation, yeah, what you can see is the amount week by week, if we're looking, the amount of violations as well as the amount of out of service orders has been decreasing since around week 37. Now, what about the percentage, right? How many violations result in an out of service order? Currently, we're at 93.14%, which is, yeah, it's up there. It's not 100%, but it's 93.14%. This is excluding border zone carriers. For those that are not familiar, border zone carriers are exempt from getting an out of service order for ELP. All right, now let's take a look quickly again at diesel prices. Currently, the national average is $3.62 per gallon. That is 3.4 cents lower than last week. It's 8.1 cents lower than last month, but again, 2 cents higher than last year. Okay, so diesel maps, last week versus this week. So here's last week, here's this week. As you can see, in the Midwest and the South, diesel prices got a little bit better. And on my website, when you see this, you can actually hover over any state and you will see what the current diesel price per gallon on average is in a state. Now, this is minus IFTA. So this is last week, this is this week, and I mean, it follows the same pattern. Right? It is lighter, which means that diesel did get cheaper week over week. Now, let's take a look at what's happening with those spot rates according to FTR. The data here is delayed by a week. So what we're looking at is spot rates last week. And you can see reefers were around 246 per mile on average, flatbeds 234, and dry vans at 195. Now, I do have a spot market map that I put together looking at the load postings for the three equipment types. But before we get into that, let's take a look at what the general data shows from this week, not last week, this week. The highest rate per mile for dry vans was West Virginia, $2.72. Again, this doesn't mean that these are good areas. We'll go through it in a minute. Lowest rate per mile is Colorado, $1.37. This is based on load postings with posted rates. Highest volume, Texas. Lowest volume, Rhode Island. And the most versatile state is Texas. Versatile means that there are a lot of load postings compared to other markets, and those loads go to all regions or to most regions. For reefers, the highest rate per mile recorded this week was Iowa, $3.85. Again, this is a snippet in time of this week. Delaware was the lowest, $1.10. Texas had the highest volume. Rhode Island had not the lowest, it had no volume, 0 loads posted when I looked at it. And Texas is the most versatile. Flatbed saw the highest average rate per mile from New Jersey. The lowest was from Nebraska. Alabama continues to have the highest volumes for flatbeds in the spot market. Delaware has the lowest, and Alabama continues to be the most versatile state for flatbeds. Okay, now we're going to look at the reefer loads and trucks on the spot market. So the darker an area is, the more loads there are in that area. Texas, Illinois, California, Pennsylvania, those are the places that have more loads. And again, if you hover, you can see how many. In terms of trucks, same thing. Where's the capacity going? For reefers, it's mostly Florida, Texas, and California. Doesn't really change week over week. Now, in terms of the rate per mile map, let's take a look. So the most versatile state was Texas for reefers, right? So as you can see, there were loads with rates posted to pretty much every single region. And if we average it out, it comes out to $2.17 on average for reefers from Texas. Let's take a look at Iowa. Iowa has an average of $3.85, and these loads were going to the Midwest, they were going to the Plain States, and they were going to the South. The highest paying was to the South, Alabama, Florida, Georgia, and so on. So yeah, please play around with that map to figure out what is going on in the market you are going to. In terms of the general overview, this is what is interesting. So the last time I did a market update, I said I am not seeing any change, and I think pretty much everyone agreed with me. There were a couple of people who disagreed. This week, it's different. So if we take a look at the reefers, you can see the outbound rate per mile last week. It's actually comparing 2 weeks ago because I missed the market update last week, and the rate per mile this week. Same thing for the load volume. Midwest went up from $2.87 on average from the posted rates to $2.95, but the volume decreased. Northeast went down quite significantly for reefers. The volume increased. From the Plain States, rates went up quite significantly. Volumes increased. From the Southern states also went up in terms of the rates and the volume. Western states actually saw a pretty significant decrease in the outbound rate per mile for reefers on the spot market, but the volume did increase a little bit. Now, if we're taking a look at this, where is the best place to stay? And it really looks like it's the Midwest, simply because there is more volume there, and the rates are increasing. I mean, the average rate per mile that was posted this week was $2.95. Of course, considering everything, and the highest rates go to the Midwest, right? Regional, kind of. All right, let's take a look at what's going on with dry vans. Where are the loads? Where are the trucks? Loads mostly are in Texas, California, and then some of the Midwest, as you can see. Trucks mostly go to California, Texas, and Florida. All right, rate per mile map. So as you can see, the darkest areas are New York and West Virginia. West Virginia had $2.72, but it was only like a couple of loads going to the south, so it doesn't count as an amazing place. Now, if we take a look at Texas, which is the most versatile, you can see the average rate per mile there is actually $1.87 for dry vans, with the highest rates going to the Plains states, usually Texas to Texas, right? If you're trying to go to the West Coast from Texas, you're faced with an average of $1.32, unless you're some master negotiator. In terms of the overview, so as you can see, let's look at the load volume. Pretty much everywhere, the volume decreased compared to 2 weeks ago, except for the western states. Now, in terms of the average posted rate, the Northeast, the South, and the Western regions saw increases in the average outbound rate per mile, while the Midwest and the Plain states saw a decrease. So where do you need to stay? In my opinion, it won't change unless something drastic happens in the market. You need to stay in the Midwest. Of course, you'll still not get a great rate per mile if you're looking to go from the Midwest to the West Coast, but you'll get pretty decent rates, Midwest going to Midwest, and the volume is there, right? 6,744 loads. Last but not least, let's take a look at what is happening with those flatbeds. As always, Alabama is the one that has the most loads, but it's generally the South. Now, in terms of trucks mostly go to Texas and to Florida when we're talking about flatbeds. Rate per mile map. So highest was New Jersey, but this was the Northeast to the Northeast. Only one place where things were going from New Jersey, that's the Northeast, so it doesn't really count. The most versatile was Alabama. Now, Alabama has doable rates and they go everywhere. The lowest will go to the West Coast, $1.94. The highest is going to go from the South to the South, right? $2.98. All right, let's take a look at the overview. Very, very interesting. 4 out of 5 regions have seen pretty significant posted rate increases on the spot market. And 4 out of 5 regions saw pretty significant load volume loss on the spot market. The only place that saw a volume increase for those flatbeds was the Northeast. Does it mean that the Northeast is the place to be? No. Yes, the average rate per mile went up in the Northeast, but that's because more loads started going from the Northeast to the Northeast, and you end up getting caught in a loop, in my opinion. The tolls are not worth it, and the fuel prices are not worth it. In my opinion, if you want to stay to a good area, you're going to stay in the South. The rates did increase, the volume did decrease, but the volume is still the highest volume. So if you're in the South and you manage to go from like the South to the Midwest or the South to the South, yeah, you're in a good position. So before I let you guys go, I want to discuss quickly what is happening on the spot market, because what we are seeing, and this is data from the load board this week, right? I go through the load board, I look at the rates, I put them in charts, I calculate the averages. So these are actual posted rates. What I am seeing is that rates are increasing, but the volume is decreasing. So how is it possible? This is something that Craig Fuller also sees in his data, that rates are increasing while tender rejection levels are staying the same. The only thing that can explain it is that capacity is leaving. Now, in terms of data versus experience, even though the data is accurate, it still doesn't really match the feeling you get on the spot market. So I'm going to quickly share what I have been going through. It's not easy. It's not a case of you log into the load board and holy moly, you have a ton of loads paying good rates. No. Not at all. What I saw this week is you log into the load board and you see a bunch of really crappy rates. But next to them, the views on TruckStop, you can see the views. You see that no one is looking at those loads. No one is booking them, but brokers are very hard to negotiate with. What ends up happening is at one point, there's going to be one sensible broker who is going to post a load for a decent rate. This is exactly what I'm seeing. This whole week, we haven't had a situation except for when I had one truck in Alabama where I logged in and didn't have to work. Considering the fact that I'm at the load board at 5 a.m., I have not booked a single load before 12 p.m. my time, so 7 hours. So it's not like COVID times, right? Yeah, the rates are increasing. First of all, they're nowhere near COVID time rates, but it's not the same sense as you would get during COVID times where you'd log in and you can just shut your eyes, just click on something and you know it's going to pay $4 per mile. No, not at all. A lot of work, a lot of pissed off brokers this week, a lot of people who do not want to negotiate or are giving you attitude when they realize that they have to book with you because no one else is calling. So a lot of attitude I have been getting from brokers. But the point is, yeah, this week there is some movement in those rates. We saw it in our company, but this is not a case of, oh, it's easier in the trucking market. No, you still have to search, you still have to negotiate, and brokers, it seems like, let's say that capacity is actually decreasing in big numbers, something that we perhaps don't yet see in the data. Brokers are very slow to accept that change. That's how it seems this week. Let me know what you saw in the market. Are you seeing what the data is showing, or are you having a hard time? Are you in the same shoes as me where no, it's not easy to book loads, but yeah, the rates are at the end of the day, when you do book a load, the rates are slightly higher because that's the position I'm in right now. Anyway, guys, wishing you all a fantastic rest of your week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and keep learning. See you in the next video.